The Chargers just came off a big win against the Las Vegas Raiders in Vegas, and there's a lot to break down from this one. This win could really shift their playoff picture, their next matchup, and even their postseason chances overall. A lot was riding on this game, and they definitely delivered. What's up, buddies? Welcome back. If you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We cover all AFC West news here on this channel. Let's talk about what this win really means. Coming into this week, the Chargers had already secured the 6th seed in the AFC Wild Card round, which originally meant a matchup against the Baltimore Ravens. But with this win over the Raiders and some help from the Steelers' loss, they've now shifted to face the Houston Texans instead. The Ravens matchup didn't go well earlier this season, and facing them again would have been a tough challenge. Some fans might have wanted another shot at Baltimore, but let's be real. If there was a choice between playing the Ravens or the Texans, most would pick the Texans without hesitation. Honestly, some Texans fans were probably hoping for this matchup too, because the Texans have played some solid football lately and they're dangerous. A win isn't guaranteed in the playoffs, but there's no denying this is a more favorable matchup for the Chargers than facing the Ravens again. This win wasn't just about moving up in the seeding, it showed something important about the Chargers' potential. Their offense looked sharp, and the defense seemed to be turning a corner. Would that have been enough to stop Baltimore? Hard to say, but against the Raiders, the Chargers didn't just win, they dominated. It was a complete performance. When you face a division rival, the records don't matter. The Chargers didn't just beat the Raiders, they crushed them. That's exactly how a team aiming for a deep playoff run should handle a struggling opponent. Sure, the Raiders managed a garbage time touchdown, making the final score 34-20. But if you watch the game, it felt more like 34-13. The Chargers didn't forget what happened last year, the 63-21 blowout loss that stuck with this franchise for a full year. One of the worst losses in team history. Fans had to sit with that and try to block it out, but it was always there. This win feels like the start of finally moving past it. It's easy to think of it as just a terrible memory, but in reality, that loss became a turning point. That game forced a massive shift within the franchise. It wasn't just embarrassing, it sparked real change. It pushed ownership, specifically GM John Spanos, to make serious moves in the offseason, which ultimately led to the hiring of Jim Harbaugh. And the rest is history. Now, here they are. A 5-win team last year transformed into an 11-win playoff squad in just one season under Harbaugh. The 5th seed in the AFC, it's one of the most significant shifts the Chargers have had in years. Jim Harbaugh has brought a winning mindset, taking underperforming talent, developing them, and making them play to their full potential. The progress is undeniable. Defensive players who struggled last year have emerged as standouts. The roster has bought in completely. And at the core of it all, a coaching staff and a front office that finally feels like the real deal. The talent added through the draft this season has played a huge role in this turnaround. Joe Alt in the first round was a home run pick. Ladd McConkey, now stepping up as the Chargers' top wide receiver, has been a major impact player since being drafted in the second round. Then there's Junior Colson, who's showing real promise, and Kamani Vidal, who has the tools to develop into something special. The secondary also got a massive boost with Cam Hart and Tarheeb Still, both mid-round selections who have become some of the best young corners in this rookie class. It's hard to overstate how well the front office has done in such a short time under Joe Ortiz. This draft class, paired with Harbaugh's leadership, has completely shifted expectations. They went from a struggling 5-win team to an 11-win playoff contender. That's a 6-win jump in one season. Now the question is, how long will it be before they become a legitimate Super Bowl threat? Honestly, it might not take long at all. This team has found its rhythm. They've built a real identity. And it all started right here in the 2024 to 2025 season. Momentum matters in football. I've said it before. Momentum is one of the most underrated factors in sports. Right now, the Chargers are building some serious momentum. After this dominant division win, they're leaving Allegiant Stadium with confidence at an all-time high. And let's talk about Justin Herbert. When he gets hot, this team reaches a whole different level. What a performance he gave in this match. He threw for 346 yards, completing 28 of 36 passes with 2 touchdowns and just 1 sack. His QB rating? A stellar 125.2, according to Bleacher Report. But he didn't stop there. Herbert also made plays on the ground, including a massive 41-yard run, finishing with 42 rushing yards on the day. Nearly a 400-yard total performance in Week 18. That's the version of Herbert the Chargers need in the postseason. And right now, he's on fire. This isn't the first time he's had hot streaks like this, but the timing couldn't be better. When Herbert gets into this rhythm, it can last for weeks. At 11-6 heading into the postseason, the Chargers have all the momentum they could ask for. Herbert's current form makes this team a real threat, even with the unpredictable nature of the playoffs. The Texans are a talented team, but a red-hot Justin Herbert completely shifts the odds. This isn't just a shot at a playoff win. It feels like a statement game waiting to happen. This offense looks ready. The defense has stepped up. Everything seems to be lining up for the Chargers to make a serious push. Quinton Johnston had some struggles early in his career, but now he looks like he's finally turning the corner. He delivered a standout performance in this game, hauling in 13 catches on 14 targets for 186 yards. Johnston had never caught more than 5 passes in a game, and his previous best in yards was 118, which he set back in Week 9 against the Browns. No touchdowns this time, but it was easily one of the most impressive outings from a Chargers wide receiver in recent memory. Johnston has had his struggles with drops and inconsistency, but this game felt like a turning point. He's shaking off that early reputation and becoming a real weapon for Justin Herbert. The coaching staff deserves credit here too. They've started using Johnston the right way, maximizing his strengths. His yards after the catch, his size, and his physicality were all on display. But what really stood out was his ability to make plays beyond his usual skill set. The highlight of the game? That ridiculous 39-yard deep ball from Justin Herbert, with Johnston reaching out for a one-handed grab, just incredible. Plays like that shifted momentum. They inspire confidence, both for him and the entire offense. It's clear Johnston is growing into a key part of this team's offensive identity. After a rocky start to his career, he's proving he can be a consistent, dangerous target. With performances like this, he's quickly becoming a major factor in the Chargers' playoff push. Pairing him with Ladd McConkey and potentially more additions through free agency, and the draft could turn this receiving core into a serious strength for the Chargers. And it wasn't just Johnston. Hassan Haskins also stepped up in the run game, adding 33 yards and a touchdown. The ground game still isn't where the Chargers want it to be, but it's becoming reliable enough to support Herbert. Speaking of Herbert, his ability to contribute as a runner made a difference too, pushing his total yardage over 400 for the day. On special teams, Cameron Dicker the kicker, went 4 for 5, a level of consistency the Chargers haven't always had at kicker. With a history of struggles at the position, having someone reliable like Dicker heading into the postseason feels like a huge win. We can say it was a bad day for Aiden O'Connell, but the Chargers defense made sure it wasn't enough to threaten the outcome. O'Connell finished with 214 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, but the defensive effort limited his impact where it mattered most. Diane Henley recorded his first career interception. Many would argue he's long overdue for Pro Bowl recognition after the season he's had. Alohi Gilman also made his presence felt, while Cam Hart was a standout in coverage. And then there's Derwin James. He's been locked in for weeks, making plays all over the field. Joey Bosa, he brought the heat, constantly pressuring O'Connell and contributing to the interception. This defensive unit seems to be finding its form at the perfect time. When you look at the Raiders' final numbers, the Chargers' defense clearly dictated the game. They slowed down the passing game, limited rushing yards, and forced key mistakes. Now, while the defense was dominant, Jacoby Myers did have a standout performance for the Raiders, finishing with 123 yards and a touchdown. Brock Bowers also chipped in with 50 yards and a score, but beyond that, the Chargers kept most of the Raiders' offense in check. This defensive unit has quietly become one of the best in football. For most of the season, they've held opponents under 20 points. And even with the late garbage time score, this one felt closer to a 34-13 kind of win, rather than the official 34-20 finish. The defense is peaking at the right time, returning to the dominant form that made them so tough earlier in the season. And when you combine that with the version of Justin Herbert we're seeing right now, this team feels as dangerous as any in the AFC heading into the playoffs. The Texans are no easy opponent. C.J. Stroud, Nico Collins, and Joe Mixon can give any defense trouble. But with the way Herbert is playing and the defense locking in, the Chargers have a real shot at making a deep run. The Chargers have something now they haven't had in a long time, an identity. Under Jim Harbaugh, this team isn't just winning games. They're building momentum, the kind that could make them a serious threat. Even against top teams like the Chiefs, it feels like they're figuring out how to unlock their full potential and could be ready to challenge Kansas City for AFC dominance in the near future. But before thinking too far ahead, the focus has to stay on this playoff run. The immediate goal is clear: beat the Texans. To everyone watching, what do you think? How important do you think securing the 5th seed was for the Chargers' playoff chances this year?